Sonic the Continuation Issue 14. Brutus explains that he allowed Gunn to download those robot designs so that he could build an army for himself and a new body. He says he has no further use for the Gun Commander, so it's so really merciful of Amy to save him. And also practical because this might convince him to trust her in the Freedom Fighters. Meanwhile, Rouge saves Cosmo. I know I'm supposed to think of Brutus as having Eggman's voice, but I'm reading his dialogue and all I'm hearing is the voice of a Metrix from Sonic X, and it's fitting perfectly. Of course, I also thought of that as the voice of Aspen. Cosmo begs the Gun Commander to free White Elm because only he can fight Brutus, and he refuses because he hates all aliens, and Topaz warns him that their own robots have turned on them and they're vastly outgunned. Rouge Status finally calls him an idiot. He at least says he'll be having words with them when this is all over. I guess that means he's pointing out the fact that he's actually allowing his subordinates to insult him so much, lampshading it. He thankfully releases White Elm after all, and sadly an entire page is wasted on him getting up. So why should I be invested in a fight between this new OC robot that looks nothing like a Sonic character and Brutus? Having characters with unexpressive faces doesn't really get me to care. Gee, I wonder if the heroes will survive this. Who cares about Brutus's dialogue? Bad guy, the end. Entire page is wasted when we could have just seen Elm get hit. He's losing, and Cosmo fortunately explains that Metrix like him can heal themselves if they have the power. She says that he must have used up all his energy after the last fight. Aspen wants to be let out and lasers Diabolon Brutus. At least it's using Diabolon in a new way. They fire their lasers at lasers of each other, and Amy asks how they can recharge Elm. Cosmo says that he needs something to supercharge him. Grimer says that he's got something new in his lab. The Gun Commander insists on trying to keep him from saying this, when obviously, classified or not, they might die otherwise. He's the dumbest military commander ever. He's supposed to care about protecting humanity, not care about this more. Grimer says he has an experimental new energy drive he was developing for the gun robots, and the prototype is in his lab workshop in a hangar. I know he's a bad guy who probably has an evil planet gun, but I really hope he doesn't get fired for this, because he's doing the right thing here, even if he's doing this to preserve his own life. It also preserves Amy's. Rouge plans on going to fight Brutus's head, and when Topaz says she read her mind, Rouge says, "And what a lovely mind it is." Chuck says satisfyingly, "Bit of advice for you, Commander. Next time you want to dig up Robotnik's old war machines, don't." I love that. Since when do we get to see Chuck be like this? Naturally, the Commander says that he did what he thought was necessary. And how the hell was he supposed to know this would happen? They're about to get to the lab when Diabolon's foot takes care of the door. And Grimer gladly shows them the prototype anyways. A power source he's had on the drawing board since before the fall of Robotnik's empire. Small slithers of natural chaos energy crystallized. And he calls it the Chaos Drive. It doesn't look like a Chaos Drive, but I guess that's good. And at least it can be taken seriously this way instead of looking like giant crayons like Chaos Drives do. But it's such a forgettable design that there's a reason I'm not remembering what it looks like when I'm recording the script. After Rouge fails to attack Brutus's head because he was using the emergency force field of the base he completely took over, and Rouge seems to waste time making small talk with them and telling him to quit while he's ahead, I would think it was cooler that Cosmo was smashing a robot while saying, "Get away from my big brother!" But I can't tell how she's smashing it. How would Cosmo be strong enough to smash a robot? And apparently Sally had super strength kicks that could smash robots all along. She tells Amy to go for the shot, as I'm still confused that she didn't damage her feet by smacking the robots with it. Amy says this isn't her crossbow. It's a crude thing she put together in a hurry. Off screen, conveniently. Where'd you get the materials? I guess Grimer's lab. So we finally get to see her use an actual bow, not a crossbow. She really hopes she'll hit accurately, which helps create some tension. So it's a really good thing Chuck had to resort to her because Sonic wouldn't have gotten to do this. Brutus says he will not defeat him, and Aspen just says, "Wow, this guy is such a crybaby." Amy hits them with arrows, and Sally naturally asks what she just watched. So Amy powered White Elm and Aspen up by firing Chaos Drives at them as arrows. I'm just so used to expecting her to shoot arrows and damage things. So Alm gets hit by a laser, but it's all fine and Brutus gets hit by one. Can't it just cut to the point where Brutus loses? It's two robots fighting. I don't feel like I'm reading a Sonic story anymore. So all of the robots get shut down, and the commander's worried that the president will get mad at him. But I'm guessing he won't get fired because God forbid, he's a game character. Even though he could get replaced by another pre-existing character. Someone coughs and is called Buddy and is asked by Amy if he's okay. And then Grimer says, "Ah, so you made it, Thorndyke." Wait, so that guy was Chris? I never realized because he wasn't a kid. He complains that Grimer left him buried under the rubble. And yet he stood up just fine? I'm glad he's an adult so he can be taken seriously. And it takes advantage of him being a genius out of nowhere in Sonic X Season 3. Topaz gives the commander a resignation and says she'll find her own way to defend humanity. Then Aspen says he'll bring Cosmo home because Daddy Oak misses her. And she's scared and gets grabbed, and he says that he should have known he'd come from behind. He easily gets away from the heroes, putting Cosmo in him so she's safe for the trip, and flies away. Amy says he'll get Cosmo back someday, and the only reason there's any hope of that is that a text box says that her and the Metrics will return. I think enough was done with them, but sure, save Cosmo. This issue by Okuda was about Brutus being defeated because Amy powered up the Metrics robots with some Chaos Drives and Grimers that she fired at them from her bow. And then Aspen flies away with Cosmo kidnapped anyways. The commander just had to be a stubborn jerk instead of doing whatever it took to protect the people around him. And humanity, which obviously Brutus would go on to threaten. I don't think he's supposed to be that incompetent. At least he sort of got punished because Topaz quit. But I think it would have been perfectly fine to not have Cosmo get kidnapped and have this be the last we'd ever see of the boring-looking Metrics. Everyone hated the Metrics. They're jerks without any facial expressions.